was a kid, my dad bought me a book. It was from the Carlton Centre bookshop. Carlton Centre was a massive building in the center of the city on Claim Street. And years later, 15 odd years later, it was a derelict. It was a wreck of a building. Nobody wanted to occupy it anymore. But that's not the story. The story is that my dad bought me a book. And it was a science fiction book. Actually, he bought me various books. He kind of worked in that area, so he popped in now and again and bought me a sci-fi book. And he didn't really like sci-fi, didn't really have much of an interest in sci-fi. Although that's not true either. He kind of did present some sci-fi-like questions, but his big thing was buy my son a book now and again. And I'm not even sure where it all came from in the area of, was he doing it because he loved me or because he wanted to keep me reading? I'm sure it's because he loved me. But he bought me several books, but the one book specifically that changed me, like foundationally, fundamentally, seminally, was a book that to this day I don't know what the name of the book is, and it disturbs me tremendously, and I almost wish that because of this recording someone can actually tell me what this book is. So what this book is all about is it's kind of thick. It's probably about 200 pages, 220 pages or so. And it's about a world that has sections of this world are inside hexagons. The entire world is hexagon after hexagon after hexagon. The only way you can enter this other hexagon is if you have, you're allowed to get into this other hexagon. They really are realms. Each hexagon is a realm. And each hexagon is different to the other hexagon. People can live their lives in very specific ways. If they believe in certain things or they want to live in a specific way, they have a certain ideology, or they can go and live in that particular hexagon. Other hexagons are for other people who want to live in other ways of thinking, in other methodologies for the way they live out their lives. It's a very interesting book, and I must be honest, I couldn't put it down. The issue, though, is that I borrowed it to a friend, lent it to a friend, borrowed it to a friend, and he destroyed it. James Buste, man, what did you do to my book? He ripped the cover off, and because of that, memorably, I can't remember the actual name of the book, sadly. But I was intrigued by this book. In fact, I remember James saying to me that I should maybe find him online and ask him what the name of that book was. I haven't spoken to him in decades. But he said it was a great book. He loved it, and he tore through it in a day. I took a week or so to read. In those days, we competed with each other to read books. I remember my Afrikaans teacher constantly saying to me, "Wow, you read so many books every time I see you," daily, because we had Afrikaans daily. "Every time I see you, you're reading a new book." And I was like, well, that's subjective because, I think we only had Afrikaans. It wasn't every day, actually. Now that I think about it, it was only like twice a week because it was a minor subject. And so it's only every second day that you would actually see me read a book because it would have taken me two or 3 days, depending on the weekend, to actually have gotten through a book. But I used to read avidly, so much that I've made many recordings about how much I read. And I love reading. To this day, I still read, and I read so much. I read so much. My brother has a house almost dedicated to housing comic books. He loves his graphic novels so much. And I've had many libraries of books. When I say libraries, I'm talking about rooms or garages filled with books. And over the years, I've gotten rid of many of them. I always go, there's something about me and I can't work out what it is, but every 2 or 3 years or whatever it is, I go through this, shall I call it a panic zone? I don't think it's a panic zone, but it's me going, I got to live life. I got to be out there. I can't be reading all the time. I love reading, but I can't be reading all the time. I got to get rid of stuff, and I just get rid of everything. I go through my whole house and get rid of lots and lots and lots and lots of things very quickly. Just get rid of everything. And then I start all over again. And for that reason, I've lost out on so many libraries that were so amazing. But recently, something magical happened. About 2 years ago, I met this gentleman who lives very close to where I live, and he's got a street library. And for whatever reason, he's a magnet to books. People everywhere. Because he's a driver for aged care centers, a lot of these older people that are moving on with their lives don't want these books, and they give him boxes and boxes and boxes of books. We became very good friends, and he's, so much so that every time I go to his house, he always treats me to his cooking and chefing, and and every time I'm there, I don't leave without 3 or 4 cartons of books. And of course, I can never read through all of those books that quickly, but I've been able to get back some of those old books that I used to have, many of those old books. And some of them I have this, affinity for and this love for. So I don't want to get rid of them now, because I'm sort of in that stage where I keep thinking, what if I never find them again? This is amazing. This was a miracle that some of these books came back into my hands, because I used to have them when I was a kid, and they all kind of came back into my hands, except that one book about the hexagons, that world. Now, I've looked up the word hexagons. I've looked up every possible descriptor, and I can't actually find that book anywhere. For whatever reason, I cannot find that book. Who wrote it? Again, funniest thing in the world is that I can't remember who wrote it, which is really strange, because I can remember the names not only of every single book that I think I've ever read, but I can also remember the names of the authors, right? Like, I really have never had a problem remembering a name. And for whatever reason, this particular book escapes me in both name and author, and even story. I kind of get this feeling that I did read it, but maybe I didn't. But it's strange, because again, I remember all books. Doesn't matter what they are. Harry Harrison through to E.E. Doc Smith. Doesn't matter what sci-fi wise I've thought of in the past that I'd read. But this particular one is completely elusive. The other thing, too, is that I thought maybe it was a dream. Maybe I never actually read it. Maybe we never read that book. Maybe that book was just not what doesn't exist in the real world, and maybe I need to write that book. And I'm scared to write it, because then somebody says, oh, but I've read that book before. I've read that story, and boom, there it is. Suddenly it shows up in the world. So very tricky, that one. But I'm intrigued by the fact that sometimes we are under this impression that we have done something or we've read something, and we're mentally trying to figure out what it was. But more so, the way to figure it out is to actually try to understand what that story was, or what the relevance of that story was. And the relevance of that story to me is that there was a time, there's going to be a time perhaps in the future or somewhere, maybe even in heaven, where we can do and be who we were meant to do and be, right? We can actually be human beings. We can do this freely without feeling like every aspect of our existence is controlled. It's a very sad notion that we aren't truly free. Since I was a kid, I remember my dad saying that we're kind of like slaves in this world, really. We're forced to do certain things that we don't want to do. We're given the illusion of freedom, but we actually don't really have freedom. We don't have freedom. I don't have freedom. I would love to say I have freedom. I mean, I am free to a degree. I can go and do certain things today, but I can't. I don't know how to explain that. I mean, I can't go travel today. I can't go off and get on a plane and go wherever. It's going to take a certain amount of this and that and documentation and paying fees and buying tickets. And there's going to be some kind of you're not free, right? And you can't just go and stay. You have to come back. You've got responsibilities here. You've got taxes to pay. You've got whatever, right? Things you've got to constantly do. And, I think that's what weathers us, is this feeling of maybe we're not free. And I know we're not free, right? I also know that we can't really be who we want to be. We can't. It's sad. It's a very difficult thing to say, because a part of me wants to believe, and I know that things that I don't do perhaps will help me, will free me up. If I follow certain commandments and I don't do certain things, my life will be better, right? And I don't per se inside of myself want to go off and do anything bad or evil. I certainly want to be good. I want to be caring, loving, kind. There was a video on last night where the man asks this question. He goes, we love Jesus, but do we really? And I suddenly went, of course I do. I mean, of course, with all my heart I do. Who would say that? And when I watched the video, I got the notion that some people are not really loving Jesus. This is on a Revealing Truth video. Some people don't actually really love him. They say they love him, but they don't really know him. They don't love him. And, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments, what God says, right? But again, we can ask ourselves this question: do we actually have that freedom? Do we have the freedom to do whatever we want to do? When are we going to live in a place where we can actually be us? Because I don't think in this world I've ever actually been me. I've never really been able to be me. Because, I was scanning through photos of Steven Spielberg last night because of whatever reason. I don't know. I just put in Steven Spielberg young, and I saw, this man has this incredible life. He had this incredible trajectory. He got to do what I always wanted to do. That was my dream, right? Make films, action films, adventure films, fun films, films that would rivet and change the world, make the world a better place. Never got to do that. On a small scale, maybe I'm sort of doing what he's doing, but on a very small scale. Would I like to have rather been Steven Spielberg rather than me? Yeah. What can I do? I'm me. I have to be the best me I can be. I am, of course, thankful for what I have and who I am and the things that I know and experience. But, when your life's not 100% accurate or running exactly according to plan, that question comes up. That question is there, am I really happy with my life? And the question is answered by, of course I'm happy. But am I? Of course I'm happy, but am I? I am happy, but am I really happy? And if I was to get to that place where I believe I should be, would I really be happy then? Of course I would be, but would I be? There's always this dichotomy of thinking, yeah, we will be, but maybe we won't be. Yeah, but we will be, but we won't, you see. So that's where I'm at right now in my life. It's not that I'm unhappy. I'm just not happy. I'm not unhappy, but I'm not happy. I'm happy, but I'm not happy. You get it? It's quite a mind-numbing exercise, but it makes me again realize that I wish I lived in a place where I could be me, really me, without feeling like I have to play to the world. I have to play to things around me that I have to do because, that's just how it's like the way people are going to accept you or whatever, right? And no one wants to feel that way. None of us want to feel that we have to be a certain way to fit in. I don't want to do that, but we do. We spend a large amount of our lives doing things for the sake of, for the sake of being known, for the sake of being in a happy state with everybody for the sake of being accepted. For, there's so many of these things that come up again and again. You feel so pressured for so many reasons, My partner, it's like if I'm not living according to her ideal standard, the way that she wants me to be, I can't be, right? My kids, my friends, my colleagues, we all say that, my kids, my friends, my colleagues, we all say this, right? They don't let me be me. I always think maybe I don't think there's any division in heaven. I don't think that we are going to be separated into hexagons, but I think to myself, we're all so different and so individual. None of us contained in a room for too long together are really going to get along. We're all going to have issues with each other, no matter who you are. I recently met a friend who we're very good friends. We really have a very special connection. But for whatever reason, too much time with that person, I don't really want to be with that person for too long, which is strange because I've always thought, even from past experience, that if there's somebody that you truly, 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 truly love, that you don't mind spending all your time with them. What happens, it was easier when we were younger. Now it's a lot harder. We sort of feel like, we've got more tools to be able to handle the grievances and the annoyances and the things that we get put through. But we're still in that zone where, given the option to go to bed early, get a good night's rest, and go out and party with somebody that we might not actually really have the best time with, we're probably going to go and have that sleep. Or am I just getting old? Do you know what I mean? Or am I just getting older? Nobody wants to say that, but it's that niggly feeling that's in the back of our imagination. So, I think heaven is a place where ultimately we subject all of ourselves, everything, to our Creator, and but it's not a troublesome subjection. It's a willful, loving, beautiful, praising. We're in love kind of feeling with our Creator. I know I love God. I know I enjoy everything from sermons to praise and worship to. But there's also that period of time where we just want to be by ourselves and just wallow in our own misery or pity or whatever it is, and take that take that pain quietly to ourselves and just deal with it, whatever that is. I just know I'm overwhelmed with things to do. There's so much that's has to be done, and yet, what can I do? We're not free really to choose. We're not really free. We have the complete illusion of freedom, but we're not really free because some of the things that we desire, we would really love to do. Maybe God doesn't want us to do them, right? And sometimes things that are vitally important that we should be doing. I hear people saying, I don't feel led to do it. And I'm like, what? But this is godly work. This is what we're doing. We're doing it for the kingdom. Oh, but I don't feel led to do this. Well, it's tricky, We're putting together an event right now where it requires everybody to be focused. And the people that we thought would be behind us, that we thought would be involved in this ministry, some of them have pulled out. And I can't believe it, because they don't feel led. Well, here's a bar of lead. Touch the lead and tell me if you feel led, because I'm feeling led right now. See, people are like, what else would you be doing if you're not doing this very valuable thing for the kingdom? What else would you be doing? What are you led to then do? Sit at home not win souls, sit at home, relax, do nothing, pig out on Gardena chocolate wafers? What would you be doing? So we are definitely at odds with each other, no matter how we see the world. And sometimes the division of our separate worlds seems like a good thing. You know, we can all of the same mind live in one hexagon, and we don't one hexagon realm and not worry about the other hexagon realm. You know, we never have to know them. You know, that way for sure we can all be separate and divided and just live out our lives the way we wanted to. But the truth is, there is no, like I've said before in a previous recording, there's no other option. God is God. There is no multitude of options. The enemy has got a number of options. There's 70 religions, and they all give you a sense of spirituality, but no accountability. And it's all on the road to damnation. So there really is no option, right? There's no option. I'm not saying that I've got any interest in that side of the fence. Zero. I'm with God. What I'm saying is that this journey, when you're with God, is a very hard journey. It's not an easy journey. It's filled with lots of stress and pain. You know, I noticed this weekend that you can't reprimand people around you. You can't tell them what's good and what's right, what's biblically sound and what isn't, because they don't want to listen. And if they and they attack you. They're like, no, ever since you become a believer in Christ, this is how you are now. You're so judgmental. But I'm like, but I'm telling you what the Bible says. I'm not being judgmental. I'm telling you. That's the Bible. It's not me saying that. But no, people don't want to hear that. Even when they are believers, people want the rebellion. They still want to do the wrong thing. And yes, they may come back to you a day or two later and say, you were right. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get upset with you, which they do. But you still get that pushback, that anger, that why are you being righteous and calling me out? And it's true. Who am I? I'm also in the wrong. I do things that are wrong all the time. I am not perfect. I'm a fallen being just like everyone else is. It's hard being a believer in Christ and still trying to maintain face in the world. I assure you, it's extremely difficult and almost impossibly an option. So, if you know the name of that book, I'd love to know what that book was, because it was actually a very cool book. I can't remember the story too well. All I can remember is that, people had to, when traveling between hexagons, they had to make peace with the fact that they were going to come across some very unusual and different things that they might not be ready for, but had to accept. And I can't even remember the actual story of the book, to be honest with you. I cannot remember the actual story of the book, but hey, and it's funny because I can remember the story of everything from Tunnel in the Sky by Robert Heinlein to, Joseph Heller's Catch-22. I mean, I can remember the stories vividly. And yet, for whatever reason, I can't remember the story of this book. But I just know that there was something about that book that was very interesting. It might even have been called Cell, C-E-L-L, right? Because each one of these hexagons were cells. And I don't think it was Harlan Ellison who wrote it, because I've been out of the sci-fi world for a long time. And I do know that sci-fi is all demonically, it really is. It's all demonically inspired stuff. There's very little in the world of sci-fi, very little that is Christian. Although, I must say, I do know of a very good Christian sci-fi writer. C.S. Lewis also wrote, and it's not C.S. Lewis, but C.S. Lewis also wrote some quasi-sci-fi. And, I've written sci-fi, and I'm a believer. And I wrote in that place of believing. But I also think fantastically the thoughts that we have when we're writing fantasy or sci-fi, you have to question where it's coming from, right? You have to question. I thank God for everything. I thank him for his love. I thank him for my imagination. But we're warned, right? We are warned about imaginations, because those imaginations could have been demonically inspired or demonically initiated. Anyway, that's the end of this recording. But so often I am intrigued. So often I'm intrigued by where we're at in this world, in this life. And I really think that somehow we need to approximate freedom as much as we can while we still live here. Try to, write down a list of all the things that make you happy and then do those every day.